Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well and happy. Today, I'd like to talk about how confidently we can say our wellness offerings are assets and why it is so important to know from the get go that our offering is an asset. Now, last week, I started talking about how many times us wellness leaders feel that spa and wellness is the most neglected department in hotels. Traditionally, hoteliers have reported a meager 1 to 3% of their total hotel revenue from spa. That is one of the fewer direct revenue generating wellness offerings they have. So if we look at that logic, if spa and wellness only gives 1 to 3% in direct revenue, that is from products and services, then it is only normal, one could argue, and I'm not saying I'm in agreement with that, but one could argue that if a revenue stream only gives 1 to 3% of total hotel revenue, then it only makes sense that the GM, the owners, actually invest 97% of their resources on departments or other streams of revenues that generate that 97% of income. It kind of makes sense, and I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. When we think and look at that fact, I think what that does, it further perpetuates that negative thinking that we are actually a bit player within the hotel department. And when we feel that we are neglected, that feeling of frustration makes us act in a different way and show up in a different way. And the result is very different. What I wanted to offer last week is that if we actually saw the huge potential that our wellness offering has, we would definitely feel far more motivated and inspired. We would act in a different way, and we would show up in a different way. So today, what I want to do is share a presentation I have prepared with you. I have talked about this in different occasions through my content here on LinkedIn, also in my podcast and in my book, The Wellness Asset. But what I'll try to do today is put it all together and tie a little bow around it. So without further ado, I'm going to actually be sharing my presentation here, if I can actually manage to share it in a proper way. But we can definitely try. So here we go. Okay, so how we know that our wellness offering is an asset. Now, one of the harsh truths about wellness and hospitality is that wellness is an asset. It's an asset that has both tangible, that is measurable value, and intangible value. And that is when wellness is done well. So when it comes to tangible value, wellness actually generates huge direct revenue from sales of products, sales of services, sales of packages, and also indirect revenue through higher occupancy, higher average length of stay, higher check per person, higher occupancy, as I mentioned earlier on, and decreasing seasonality and increasing occupancy, especially during low season. So those are all the tangible aspects and that relate to the tangible value of a wellness asset. Then we also have that intangible value that we really can't easily measure. And that is our employee satisfaction, our employee well-being, our guest satisfaction, the overall well-being of our community, our environment, and also our financial well-being of the general business itself. However, the big mistake we make is that we think that wellness offerings are automatically an asset, when actually the asset is the potential the wellness offering has. And this is why 97% of hoteliers report a meager 1 to 3% of the total hotel revenue from wellness. And the reason they do that is because they have the wrong wellness offering. Now, I have talked about this, and I will share later on after the live is over in the comment section a video where I talk about the 4 types of wellness offerings. Now, not all wellness offerings are assets. There are 3 other types of wellness offerings. You have opportunity, risk, and liability. Now, when I was working as a wellness director, I remember feeling sheer and utter frustration and despair when I saw really excellent wellness offerings not work. And I couldn't really understand why until one day I actually sat down and I thought, okay, there are 2 aspects to ensure the success of your wellness offering. The first are the soft aspects, which I call the potential of the project. So that is your story, your concept, your vision, your purpose, all those soft aspects that actually determine that potential. Then on the x-axis, you have the hard aspects. So that is systems, staff, management, resources. And in order to have an asset, you need both the potential and the realisticity, because if not, you have an opportunity, a risk, or a liability. There are so many great concepts out there, but for whatever reason, they do not have the right hard aspects. For example, the building the hotel is in might be hugely restricted, or the owners don't have funds. In which case, though the project, the wellness offering, has huge opportunity, huge potential, it cannot actually be implemented in its current state to be an asset. So it becomes just a mere opportunity in the top left quadrant. Then those are the danger ones. We have the next category that are liabilities. And the reason I say they're dangerous is because sometimes the owners or the wellness offering really doesn't have a truly differentiating concept of vision and purpose, but you have all the hard aspects. You have the funding, you have the space, you have people who want to put money on it, but you don't have potential. So what you end up having is a liability because you actually can implement the concept because you have the hard aspects. Then you have those kind of trouble childs, which are called the risk. They neither have the potential nor the realisticity to be implemented and to be really strong wellness offerings. So when we look at our wellness offering, it is incredibly important to know that we have an asset from the get-go. Now, the number one mistake we all make as wellness leaders is that we think we will get to that asset quadrant by all these different types of business strategies, promotions, getting the best staff that we can, getting the best product brands possible. But it is of little use if, for example, you have a facility that has leakages everywhere. For example, you will not be able to offer a luxury service, even if you have luxury brands, if the actual physical facility does not allow for that. So that was just a random example that I gave right now, but it is incredibly important to ensure that you get that asset from the get-go, because if you don't have the asset from the get-go, this, the end result ends up being this problem of the 97% of hoteliers who actually only report 1 to 3% of total revenue from their spas, one of the fewer direct revenue generating areas. So I wanted to jump on here quickly to talk about the importance of not saying by right that every single wellness offering is an asset, because it is not. We need to make sure that we have created that asset from that get-go. And an asset, for example, for a normal hotel spa in an urban location, will look very, very different from a boutique hotel that is purely focusing on wellness. What the wellness asset is in each of these properties will be very, very different. And as a consequence, the business strategies used to promote that wellness asset will be very different. However, what we end up doing is we work very superficially on the business strategies. We want to work on revenue management. We want to get out the new brand. We want to bring in all these amazing visiting practitioners. And then when things don't work out, we get frustrated. And the danger is when they don't work out, we end up perpetuating the myth that wellness is not a strong contributor of value or revenue to the overall hotel offering. And next week, what I'd like to also highlight is what I call the value iceberg. Another mistake that sometimes we as wellness leaders make without realizing it. And I learned that over the course of these years. So today I wanted to highlight the first kind of mistake we make, or caution. We need to ensure that we have an asset. Not all wellness offerings are assets. Only a small percentage of wellness offerings are assets. All of them have the potential to be one, but it is our job as wellness leaders to ensure we have an asset from the get-go, and then get our business strategies in place and use those to actually promote that business. So I hope you enjoyed my little banter, and I see you next week. Take care. Bye now.